Buried for 3,000 years beneath the sands of Saqqara, a tomb sealed with a chilling curse warned intruders of agonizing death at the hands of underworld gods. When archaeologists dared to break the ancient seal, the myth of the Pharaoh's curse suddenly felt real. Within hours, the excavation team fell violently ill, echoing the fate of Lord Carnarvon. Was this supernatural vengeance, or had they triggered something far more dangerous, a toxic biological trap engineered by time itself? The answer upends everything we thought we knew about ancient Egyptian tombs. Beneath the shifting sands of Saqqara, a team of archaeologists gathered at the mouth of a shaft untouched since the reign of the New Kingdom. The excavation leader, a veteran of dozens of digs, stood at the threshold, eyes fixed on a slab of limestone wedged tightly into the passage. The stone door, its edges sealed with ancient mortar, blocked the way forward. Dust coated every surface, undisturbed for 3 millennia. Chisel marks from the original masons were still visible, as if the work had finished only yesterday. The team worked in silence, methodically clearing debris with brushes and wooden tools. Each movement sent fine grains swirling through the lantern light. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of earth and something older trapped for generations behind that barrier. Every so often, the leader paused to examine the hieroglyphs carved just above the seal. The symbols were sharp and deliberate, the message unmistakable to those who could read the language of the dead. No one spoke of the warning yet. All attention was on the challenge before them, a stone estimated at nearly 2 tons, set with a precision that defied the centuries. It took hours of careful work to reveal the full outline, exposing the seams where leverage might be found. The tools scraped against the mortar, crumbling it grain by grain. With a final heave, the slab shifted, groaning under its own weight. A rush of stale air poured from the darkness beyond, carrying with it a chill that prickled the skin. The passage yawned open, revealing only blackness and the promise of secrets long buried. In that moment, the thrill of discovery warred with a rising sense of dread. The ancient seal had been broken. Whatever waited inside was now awake. An epigrapher stepped forward, his gloved hands tracing the incised lines just above the doorway. Years of dust clung to the hieroglyphs, but the warning beneath was still clear. With a steady voice, he began to translate, each word echoing off the limestone. The inscription did not plead for respect or remembrance. Instead, it was a threat, a direct challenge to any who dared cross the threshold. It invoked the names of the underworld gods, Osiris and Anubis, promising that the violator would face their judgment. The text spoke of a punishment swift and agonizing, a death by a malady no physician could cure, not just for the thief, but for all who disturbed the peace of the tomb. The scribe's finger paused on a cluster of symbols depicting pain and darkness, the language of fear chiseled with intention. A hush settled over the team. The words worked their way through the group, translated and repeated in whispers. Some workers shifted uneasily, glancing at the darkness beyond the door. Others dismissed it as ancient superstition, a relic of a world ruled by myth and ritual. The excavation leader nodded curtly, signaling the work should continue. The practical minds in the group pointed to the purpose behind such threats, to scare off tomb robbers and deter the desperate. Yet the explicit promise of agony, the invocation of powers beyond the grave, left a mark. As the last lines were read aloud, the inscription's intent was undeniable. This was not a gentle warning. It was a curse, carved to outlast the bones it guarded. The team pressed on, skepticism and apprehension mingling in the stale air, the echo of the ancient threat following them into the darkness. The first signs of trouble arrived just hours after the tomb seal had been broken. A young worker, still dusty from hauling debris, stumbled out of the shaft clutching his head. His face was pale, beads of sweat collecting along his brow despite the cool air below ground. He complained of an intense headache and a tightness in his chest. The rest of the team tried to brush it off, heat, nerves, maybe just the weight of the moment, but soon more followed. One by one, workers began coughing, their voices hoarse and strained. Some doubled over with nausea, unable to keep down water. A seasoned excavator who had spent years in the tombs of Luxor pressed a handkerchief to his nose, eyes watering uncontrollably. The sharp, acrid smell that had rushed out with the first breath of ancient air now seemed to linger, burning in the lungs. By late afternoon, nearly a third of those who had entered the chamber were showing symptoms: pounding headaches, shortness of breath, dizziness, and a sickly taste at the back of the throat. Word spread quickly beyond the dig site. Local reporters, already drawn by rumors of the curse, gathered at the perimeter. By nightfall, headlines in Cairo and beyond blared warnings of the curse of the Pharaoh. The story took on a life of its own. Families of the workers demanded answers. Some begged their loved ones to quit, convinced that the ancient warning carved above the door had come to life. The excavation leader faced a mounting crisis, not just of health, but of fear. With each new case, the pressure to halt the dig grew stronger. The line between myth and reality blurred, and the tomb's warning echoed louder than ever among the living. A new team arrived at the tomb, this time in full protective suits and filtered respirators. Among them was Dr. Zahi Hawass, called in to oversee what the local press had already dubbed a crisis. Alongside him, a microbiologist from Cairo University prepared sterile sampling kits. Their job was to find out what, if anything, in the tomb's air could explain the strange illnesses. The process began at the threshold. Air samplers hummed quietly, drawing in the thick, musty atmosphere. Portable sensors registered a spike in hydrogen sulfide, a gas known for its rotten egg odor and its ability to cause nausea and headaches, even at low concentrations. Each reading was logged, time-stamped, and double-checked for accuracy. Swabs were taken from the walls, the floor, and the surfaces of pottery left undisturbed for centuries. Every movement followed a strict protocol to prevent contamination. Gloves changed, samples sealed, chain of custody forms signed. Within hours, preliminary tests revealed something more alarming. Spore counts inside the chamber reached over 1 million per cubic meter, far beyond safe levels. The culprit was identified as Aspergillus niger, a black mold capable of surviving for millennia in dry, dark conditions. Its spores, once airborne, can trigger severe respiratory problems, especially in those with allergies or weakened immune systems. The microbiologist explained this mold can cause headaches, nausea, even bleeding in the lungs under the right conditions. Dr. Hawass addressed the team, his voice muffled by his mask. Ancient Egyptians may have warned of curses, but what we are facing is a natural hazard. The tomb is a sealed ecosystem. Disturb it, and you release everything trapped inside. The evidence was clear. The so-called curse had a scientific explanation, a toxic mix of gas and spores lying in wait for anyone bold enough to break the seal. Names and titles carved deep into the limestone made clear that this burial belonged to someone who stood just beneath the pharaohs themselves. The hieroglyphs, arranged in careful columns, spoke of a man called Treasurer of His Majesty, Overseer of the Granaries, Beloved of Osiris. Honorifics wrapped his name in layers of deference: Great One of the Palace, Guardian of the Royal Seal. No simple scribe or artisan, this was a figure entrusted with the wealth of an empire. The treasurer's responsibilities stretched from the gold mines of Nubia to the storerooms of Memphis, managing tribute, taxes, and the supplies that fed the gods and armies alike. In the rigid social order of the new kingdom, only a handful of officials were granted such elaborate tombs. The scale of the burial shaft, the thickness of the stone door, and the presence of a curse all pointed to a man who wielded real power, someone whose enemies might have tried to erase him, or whose fortune was tempting enough to invite thieves. The inscription did not include a royal cartouche ruling out a pharaoh, but the array of titles left no doubt. This was a king's confidant, a man permitted to stand before the throne and speak for the treasury of Egypt. Such a burial demanded not only protection from the living, but also divine guarantees for the journey to the afterlife. The curse above the door was part of that defense, a warning to would-be robbers, but also a statement of the owner's rank. Only the most trusted servants of the state could command such elaborate measures. With every word chiseled into stone, the tomb asserted its claim. The wealth within was not just gold, but the legacy of a man whose signature shaped the fate of a kingdom. Inside the tomb, the first chamber offered little in the way of spectacle. Along the walls, simple wooden chairs and beds leaned at odd angles, their legs warped by centuries of dryness. Pottery jars, some sealed with ancient mud stoppers, lined low benches. Each vessel was labeled in a faded hieratic hand, lentils, figs, barley, provisions intended to feed the spirit on its journey through eternity. The conservator moved with care, cataloging every object before a single item was disturbed. He noted how the layout echoed the blueprint of other high-status burials from the New Kingdom, an antechamber packed with goods for the afterlife, but nothing that would tempt a grave robber to linger. No gold glinted in the lamplight, no jeweled boxes or ornate statues. A sense of anticlimax crept in. The offerings, though precious to those who placed them, looked plain to modern eyes. The only hint of something unusual came from the far end of the chamber. There a wall of white plaster stood out, its surface smooth and unbroken. Unlike the rough-cut stone elsewhere, this barrier had been finished with deliberate care, as if to erase any sign of what lay behind. The conservator ran his fingers gently along the edge, feeling for cracks or seams. The plaster was intact. No chisel marks, no ancient graffiti, no sign that anyone had ever tried to break through. He called the team together, pointing out the subtle bulge where the wall met the floor. In the hush that followed, speculation rippled through the group. Was this a symbolic partition or a practical attempt to hide something more valuable? The air in the chamber felt thicker, heavy with the possibility of secrets still sealed away. The plainness of the offerings now seemed purposeful, a decoy perhaps meant to mislead. As the team prepared their tools, the promise of a deeper mystery pressed in from behind that flawless wall. A wall of white plaster gave way to a chamber unlike any the team had seen. At its center rested a monolith of black granite, polished to a mirror sheen despite the centuries. The sarcophagus dominated the space, nearly 3 meters long, its weight alone a testament to the resources marshaled for the man within. Every inch of its surface was carved with hieroglyphs and protective spells, the symbols winding in dense columns from lid to base. The engravings included passages from the Book of the Dead, each line invoking safe passage through the perils of the afterlife. Some glyphs shimmered faintly with mineral traces, catching the lantern light and casting shadows that danced across the chamber walls. The original mortar still sealed the seam between lid and coffin, hardened into a crust that defied even the finest modern tools. No cracks, no pry marks, nothing to suggest the tomb had ever been violated. For an epigrapher, the discovery was a career's crowning moment. He knelt beside the granite, tracing the raised figures with a reverence reserved for holy texts. The names and titles of the tomb's owner were etched in a formal hand, surrounded by images of deities offering protection. Osiris, Anubis, and Ma'at appeared in procession, their forms undisturbed by time or human hand. The preservation of the seal meant that for 3,000 years, no air, light, or living thing had touched what lay inside. In the world of Egyptian archaeology, such untouched sarcophagi are vanishingly rare. Most have been plundered, their treasures scattered or lost. Here, the granite coffin stood as a time capsule, its secrets waiting to be revealed. The sense of anticipation was electric, every detail suggesting that something extraordinary lay just beyond the stone. Balancing atop the granite sarcophagus, a single papyrus scroll defied the odds of survival. Its surface, still marked with the brushstrokes of a scribe long dead, offered a glimpse into a world usually lost to decay. Most papyri crumbled to dust within centuries, but here, the sealed chamber and arid air had conspired to preserve an artifact of extraordinary rarity. The conservator, hands trembling despite years of experience, recognized the significance instantly. This was not a mere funerary document. It might contain spells or chapters never catalogued before, perhaps even a version of the Book of the Dead, unique to this official's household. Such texts can rewrite accepted history, revealing the beliefs and ambitions of Egypt's elite in their own words. Attention soon shifted to the engineering marvel before them. The sarcophagus lid, weighing several tons, required a coordinated effort to move without damage. An engineer led the operation, assembling a lattice of steel beams and hydraulic jacks around the stone. Each adjustment was measured and precise, the slightest miscalculation risking disaster for both the artifact and the team. The process unfolded over hours. Tension built as the granite groaned, the lid lifting millimeter by millimeter. At last, the gap widened enough to reveal what lay inside. Beneath the granite, an inner coffin appeared, shaped in the likeness of a human body. Gold leaf shimmered across its surface, interrupted only by the inlaid eyes, obsidian stones set so precisely they seemed to watch the room. The craftsmanship spoke to the wealth and status of the tomb's owner. For the archaeologists, this was the true intellectual and material jackpot: a sealed papyrus, a gold-clad coffin, and the promise of lost knowledge waiting to be read for the first time in 3,000 years. Even now, every sealed tomb holds more than relics. It traps ancient dangers that science is only beginning to understand. As global excavation accelerates, accidental exposure to toxic spores and pathogens poses real risks to modern teams. The true legacy of these tombs is not just gold or curses. It is a reminder that history can still reach out and touch us in ways we least expect. What would you risk for discovery?